Have you experienced the awesome power of the Panasonic Real 3DO system? Obviously.
Presenting 3DO, the most advanced home gaming system in the universe. It's time to put away your toys.
3DO from Panasonic, Gold Star, and Creative Labs. A new low price and free games.
Mind-blowing graphics of Panasonic Real 3DO. 3DO.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast, where we talk about all things 3DO, the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Thrak. How you doing, Thrak?
Oh, hey, Bill. I'm here. We're talking about fighting games. I don't know what the fuck this shit is.
Yeah, we're talking about fighting games. The 3DO has a healthy amount of them, oddly enough.
Yeah. And then so we're starting with what are these hoodlums doing? These fucking these fucking kids, get off the street with your fighting. You go, why are they so fast? Slow down.
Yeah. They're not only super, but they're also turbo.
It's crazy, man.
But before we get into that, anything new in the world of Thrak?
Let's see. Nothing really. I mean, I might be getting a new job, so that would be nice. Let's see. I've put more time into Shining Force 3 because I will be doing that with Jala-chan on her show in a couple months. So I'm finally working on that properly, getting into the groove of it. I have some issues with SF3, but I will save those for the show. Played a little bit of Arkham City on a whim, so I've made it kind of far. Or I'm making a little bit of progress in that, and I'm still collecting OG Xbox games. So I have like well over 50 now, just because they're so cheap. So
Nice.
Yeah, they've been fun. I beat my first OG Xbox game. I beat Zapper. That was One Wicked Cricket.
That's a good game.
It's not bad. Yeah. I mean, I think I would take, like, say, Frogger 2 Swampy's Revenge over it or something like that, but I think it works really well. It's just these games, they have such a specific control setup that it requires, like, all of my concentration to be able to play these games. Like, I can't just put it on autopilot while I, like, listen to something else. I have to focus on the game to actually be any good at it. But thankfully, the penalties for dying are very minimal, so it's not too bad. And I did about 80% of the game in one playthrough, which isn't too bad. So
I think the GBA Froggers might be better, but Zapper's a really good game.
I think it's Temple the Frog. That game is pretty banging.
That one's good, and the sequel to it, the Mystic Crystal or something like that. That one's also really good.
The Mystic Quest.
Yeah.
Where's the Frogger RPG? God damn it.
Actually, I think one of the GBA ones kind of is RPG-ish.
God damn it. That's awesome.
From what I remember.
Yeah.
Nitro Rad did an entire, like, series playing, like, every Frogger game, so.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't it makes too much sense. Somebody had to do it, and he was the one to do it. Yeah. Temple Advance. There was the Great Quest got a GBA port.
Yeah, and it's a side scroller that sucks.
Well, at least the console version's a 3D game that sucks.
With zero camera control. Have fun with that.
Yeah. There was the Forgotten Relic. So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Frogger's a weird series.
Oh God, yes. Yeah, the last one came out, I think, in like 2011. Yeah, I think that was the last proper Frogger game.
Was that like Frogger 3D on 3DS?
I believe so.
I own that. I've never played it though.
Yeah, they tried really hard to make Frogger a thing in the mid 2000s, and then Konami just kind of gave up.
I think Nitro Rad said in his series that, like, literally, like, the final game in that series, Helmet Chaos on PSP and DS, is literally the best one. And he jokes that they finally figured out and then immediately just scrapped everything.
Konami was starting to get into their really dumb period in the 2010s. They were really dumb in that decade, weren't they?
Looking back at it, they've always been kind of dumb. They just had really good like people that kind of made them look better than they were.
Yeah, like they always had really good dev studios and all that. I mean, there were other companies were struggling at this time in the 2010s as well. I just think Konami was one of the few that didn't come out of it. You know, like Capcom came out of it pretty well, Nintendo came out of it pretty well, Sega came out of it pretty well. Like the 2010s seemed to be kind of rough for Japanese devs, at least at the start of it. But by the end of the decade, it was getting much better. And Konami just, they haven't really gotten back to that place they were prior to this. You know, they haven't, that they've made like decent stuff since then, but they haven't really gotten back to that high echelon of developer that they used to be. So, but and I'm afraid they'll never be able to recover from it.
Well, they lost pretty much all of their people that mattered. Like, because
lost them.
Yeah, well,
where'd they go? Where'd they go?
I believe one of them has his own studio now. I believe the other one also has his own studio now. I think the other one also has his own studio now. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives me no confidence in anything that they are currently working on that has been announced. You know, like I have no confidence in the newer Silent Hill games that are coming. I don't have a lot of confidence in the MGS3 remake.
Yeah.
And anything else, like maybe small stuff, like if they just do another Bomberman, sure. But beyond that, I don't know, man. Like if they were to announce like a new Castlevania, if it was like a brand new 2D Castlevania game, I think I'm pretty sure that would be fine. But like if they try to do like another Lords of Shadow type, I would have no confidence in it.
Yeah, and even
I have
then,
no reason to.
No, they don't. And even then, like they had like nothing to do with those games, anyways. Because I think Mercury Stream made all of them.
Yeah. Mercury Steam made the trilogy, but you know, I've not heard good things about 2.
See, it's weird. I've heard some people like 2 and other people don't. It's like hit or miss.
Exactly. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, OG Xbox stuff has been fun to come around to it. And I think the next game I'm going to play, I have it down here, is Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30.
I've heard good things about that game.
See, this is the kind of shit that gives me nostalgia. Like in the 6th generation, we were obsessed with World War II shooters.
Yes,
there were a ton of them. And this was one of the many that kind of got lost in the pile, you know, because Medal of Honor was the big boy for a while. Then Call of Duty came in and, you know, sort of sideswiped everything. There was like a History Channel one, and
yes, there was.
Yeah, that game's awful. Like a bunch more, but this one I'd always seen it before, and I believe it got an HBO series named after it, Brothers in Arms, done by Gearbox, published by Ubisoft. So I've heard good things about it. Well, every game I play a little bit of just to be sure that it works, and it does work. And I'm curious to what it is. You know, it's a paratroop, like you're a paratrooper, you jump in and you're just doing shit. So, you know, if I've heard people say it's up there with like Medal of Honor and Call of Duty as like the really good ones from this era. So we shall see.
Yeah. I ordered my copy of Thousand Year Door. It's currently delayed. They're telling me it might be here by Thursday. So
I'll probably get mine on Thursday, just as like waiting for the payday kind of thing. Yeah. So, because I will eventually get around to it, but I am playing an RPG at the moment, so yeah, I'm not going to throw another RPG on the pile.
I started another playthrough of South Park: The Fractured Butthole recently. That game just doesn't get old, like both of those. Oh yeah,
because we were talking about that last week.
Yeah, I was like tempted to do it, and then I just finally I was watching the NASCAR race yesterday, and I was bored, so I just put on the game while it was playing in the background.
What do you think about them stopping the race?
I mean, it sucks, but I get it.
But like they could have since they were at like a little over halfway, They could have just been like, we'll come back tomorrow and finish it.
So that's actually in the rule book. Once they hit a certain amount of laps, the race is considered official. And if they end the race, it's over. They can't come back the next day. They can only come back the next day if they don't hit the halfway point.
Well, that's dumb.
It's part of a rule thing.
You could always change the rule.
Well, NASCAR plays willy-nilly with rules all the time.
Exactly. Well, the reaction I've seen is a lot of people were upset that they ended the race early. I mean, weather conditions, sure, but like, I feel like it should be like closer to say like 70 or 80% of the race done, then they don't reset it. Because I think 50% is just really low.
I think the thing that ticked everybody off it wasn't the fact that they called it. It was the fact that they stopped it for rain, and then they like basically made everyone sit around for 2 hours and then just called it.
Yeah, that sucks too. The whole thing just kind of didn't work out.
Nah, like especially because I thought they were going to do whatever they could because they were pushing the Kyle Larson storyline like nothing.
Yeah, and then that didn't work out for circumstances beyond his control. I get he's upset about it, but shit happens.
No, it's whether literally like everything would have worked out perfect, but there was one thing that could have ruined it, and that one thing happened, and that was weather.
Exactly. So it wasn't meant to be, I suppose.
No, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious how they're going to handle that going forward, but in the past, Christopher Bell got a win. Good for him, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I know my mom's upset because
Brad was in second, and he was almost there.
Yeah, like he was running. He could have won it. Especially because he started 30th. So then ended up second, which is pretty fucking good.
His car kept coming in right at the end of a run. Like he would start out like shit, and then by like the end of like a cycle, he would just suddenly be like the fastest car on the track.
Yeah. Like he knew the right time to cut in and take some spots. But but because he won that one race finally, maybe that's giving him some confidence, and he's using that confidence to try to really get back up there. So
I think they're the one team that's figured out the Fords because the other Ford teams still haven't figured it out.
I mean, it's just a car, but whatever. We're not here to talk about cars. We're here to talk about the Hadoukens, bald men, Russian bears, and other random crap. I don't know. What the fuck is this again?
It's a Street Fighter.
Fucking what's a Street Fighter? This thing. It's Street Fighter 2 Turbo Super. I still don't know what this is.
It is arguably the most iconic fighting game of all time.
It doesn't have ninjas that rip people's heads off. So who the fuck cares?
No, but it has a bitchin' soundtrack. That's all I'll say.
All right. All bullshitting aside, I can say that like Street Fighter has never really been a favorite of mine. Like I'm not really a fighting game guy.
That's fair.
And to a much lesser extent, a Street Fighter guy. Like the first fighting game I ever played, or the first fighting game series I ever came across, was Mortal Kombat. Because growing up with the Sega Genesis, we had a copy of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. And I played the shit out of that. Like that's one of the first games I recall playing. And I wouldn't say I'm great at that game either, but I could probably hold my own decently well. I always pick Stryker because he was like secretly just a powerhouse. Especially in UMK3 when he has his gun move. And his fatalities were great and all that. And of course I love Sub-Zero and all them. And like I'm not huge into the lore of games, kind of like overall. Like the story and stuff is fine, but like whenever they're like, oh, here's like a codex and you can read all the background stuff, I never fucking read that stuff. I don't fucking care. Unless it's like Control, where I find it like really fascinating to read. But that's a rare instance, right? But Mortal Kombat, I fucking love the lore. Like I know a lot of the lore. I know a lot of the history and all the various characters. Like it's just one of those series that clicks with me in that way. And so I didn't know about Street Fighter until many, many years later. And I've tried many times to play Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter Alpha, 3, 4, all various versions of it, and I am not good at it, like at all. I'm pretty fucking terrible at it. It just
Yeah.
it's a very peculiar. It's like I'm so used to say how games like Mortal Kombat play as far as 2D fighters go, that going to something like this is like it doesn't really register in my brain. Like especially some of the special moves for some of the characters to me just are really clunky to pull off, but people can pull them off no problem. I mean, I love Soul Calibur. Probably my most played Dreamcast game is the first Soul Calibur game. I think I did arcade mode with every character. Love Soul Calibur 2 and 4 and all of those.
Tekken's a big one for me. I love Tekken.
I like a bit of Tekken. Tekken 3 on the PlayStation 1 is great. There used to be an arcade by my house that had, I think it was Tekken Tag Tournament 2. And me and my friends played that a lot. Like a lot. And that was always a really fun time. And then by extension, the Marvel versus Capcom series is pretty solid. I always liked X-Men versus Street Fighter. I don't know. There's something about that game that really appeals to me. It's a little bit more button mashy, I think. Whereas like something like Street Fighter 2, like you can kind of button mash and get away with it, but really the game requires you to have a knowledge of it, but not like say like a Guilty Gear or a Blaze Blue that are very
those games have a flow to them that you have to just kind of figure out.
I've never played them and I never will because that's beyond me. It's like not for me. And then of course there's Smash Brothers, which everyone's played Smash Brothers, but that's not a fighting game per se. It's just like it's a party game.
Yeah.
So.
To me, this style of fighter, I was always more like attracted to like say like a King of Fighters or like mostly the SNK style fighting games.
Yeah, I haven't played a lot of those, but I can see why people prefer those over say Street Fighter,
Yeah, I've got nothing against Street Fighter. I really like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on the Dreamcast. I think that's a really fun game that it's grown on people a lot, but at the time it wasn't quite as appreciated as it could be.
That might be the best Street Fighter game.
It's up there. It is a really cool game.
Yeah, I quite like Alpha 3. At least the cast of characters in there and all that was pretty good. And I mean, I guess with all these fighting games, if I really dedicated myself to them, I could get good, as they say. But I don't know. Like they're fun to play, but it's just again like in my brain, I'm just so used to Mortal Kombat, and those are definitely more simple. It's a much more simpler kind of fighting style, which some people in the fighting game community poo-poo on Mortal Kombat for being so simple, but I think that's part of the appeal of it, that it's like it's Western made, so it just sort of has that sort of Western ideology, I guess, about it, even though it is taking from like kung fu movies from the 70s and things like that, and like mythology and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, like those always appealed to me. Like during the 3D era, I played a shit ton of Deadly Alliance, Deception, and Armageddon. Like that trilogy of games holds a very special place in my heart.
Very good games.
For like the really good 3D fighting that there was there, all the different stances, the conquest modes, even stuff like chess combat and cart combat, all that stuff was great. So, Street Fighter, that I always knew the joke with Street Fighter 2 is that how many versions of Street Fighter 2 are there? There's regular Street Fighter 2. There's Street Fighter 2 the Champion Edition. There's Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Super Street Fighter 2. Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And I think now Hyper Street Fighter 2.
There's Ultra Street Fighter 2
Ultra
Turbo.
Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Oh, that was the 360 one, wasn't it?
I think so. No, that was Ultra Street Fighter 4.
It came out on 360 through like the marketplace, like Xbox Live Arcade.
Street Fighter names are so confusing. Like, I mean, Street Fighter 3 you got Street Fighter 3, then you got Street Fighter 3 like Second Attack, and then Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Like,
yeah. Oh, here, according to Wikipedia, we have Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior Champion Edition, Turbo, Super Turbo, Hyper, HD Remix, and Ultra. And that's just Street Fighter 2.
What about that Fighting Street?
Isn't that the
Game is-
first one?
Yeah, and it's garbage.
Yeah,
It
it's
is
not a
utter
good
garbage.
not a good game. I think I tried playing it once, and yeah, rough go with that one.
Yeah, it's amazing that they really hit it out of the park with the second one.
Oh, they did so much that they milked the shit out of it.
I mean, I'll give them credit for it. I mean, it was kind of worth it because the amount of money they probably made off this one game.
Oh yeah, like despite my not really being a big fan of Street Fighter in general, like I can recognize the quality. Like I mean, hell, you could make an argument this is the best game on the 3DO. Like just bar none, just as far as like its name reputation, the quality of it, of the game itself, the quality of the port, like everything really fucking comes together on this.
I was going to save it for the end, but we might as well go there now. This might be one of the greatest ports I've ever seen.
It's easily the best 3DO port.
This, I think, until the Arcade Perfect ports came out on modern platforms, I think this was the best version of the game on a console for the longest time.
Yeah, basically until the HD remix on the PS3 and the 360, the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD remix came out, which was in, I forget when that came out. I remember when that came out, that was a big deal for some reason. 2008, yeah. I remember when that came out, like people were like, yeah, it's even better than Arcade Perfects. I think they even went in and like updated all the graphics to give them a little bit more of a modern look. Like the speed was kind of changed and the characters were a little bit rebalanced as well. So it played really well, had online. And it wasn't very beginner friendly, at least from my experience. But again, I'm dog shit at Street Fighter, so that could just be a me problem. I don't know. But
so I will say the one thing about this port, and it's not really the game's fault, it's more just the fact that the 3DO is the 3DO. We got to talk about this guy right here.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes, I chose the Gold Star controller because it's funnier that way. So one inherent problem with the 3DO controller, it's short one button.
Yep.
And this is
one of those buttons, the two in the center right there.
So
they make that one of your attack buttons.
They worked around it. So basically, you got your three face buttons. Mm-hmm. Those, I believe, are exclusively for punches. Or actually, no, they might be kicks.
They start out as kicks, but what's nice is when you go into the menu, you can make any button whatever attack you want. That's very easy. And if I remember, the bottom, like A, B, and C are your kicks, and then L, R, and P are your punches. Yes. I flipped them because I prefer having punches. Again, Mortal Kombat, I prefer having the punches on the bottom and the kicks on the top.
So for visual reference for the video watchers, the three face buttons control either punches or kicks, and then you have to use your shoulder buttons and the P button, which is pause.
Yeah.
Not the greatest setup. It works once you get used to it. Thankfully, as Thrak has, there is a much better option that Capcom was so gracious to provide.
Yes. Now, Capcom recognizing this issue made specifically for this game, but of course it's a controller that's compatible with just about every other 3DO game. This little guy right here, the 3DO Fight Pad is what it's called. And as you can see, the Capcom laser etched their logo into there, which looks really nice. Now, this controller looks really, really fucking funky, right? And I recognize that. But it's surprising how like comfortable it is. So as you can see, you have your A, B's, and C, and your L, P, and R right up here, and you have your X, and then your additional P here, and then this little D-pad kind of thing. But it's surprising how ergonomic it is. Like if you look at the back on the sides, right? Like it has like the weird little mouth thing or whatever, but your hands kind of conform to it, or at least mine do. Like they just kind of naturally rest on the front of it, and then your thumbs right here. And then what I do is I just kind of do this little C with my hand around this, and then my thumbs just kind of glide over all the buttons. So it ends up becoming a slightly comfortable controller, at least for a game like this. For other games, like say, if you want to do like Gex, you would have to sort of you would have to go in and adjust some of the controls so that you could be like, oh, if you hold R to run and then C could be your jump, you could do like the Mario thing where you put your whole thumb on and then press the rest of it down or something like that, right? Which could work. But this is definitely made for fighting games, and it makes something like Super Street Fighter 2 over here work much, much better, and it's way better than a standard 3DO controller. Though I know they made this for other consoles.
They did. I actually saw a Super Nintendo one yesterday.
There's a Super Nintendo one. There might have been a Genesis one. Was there one for probably not TurboGrafx, but like Capcom made these for a couple consoles to help with Street Fighter 2, because I know a lot of people back then complained about the controller setup for various consoles. Like say for the original Sega Genesis, it only had 4 buttons. And I remember, I think it's for Champion Edition, the 3 would be like, say, your punches, and you'd have to push start to select your
swap,
kicks,
yeah,
which is really dumb. And then say the Super Nintendo controller has 6 buttons, but you have your 4 face buttons and the 2 shoulder buttons, and it's still a little awkward to make 2 of the inputs the shoulder buttons, but you can make it work. But later on, Sega eventually released the proper 6-button controller, so a lot of later fighting games supported that. I think earlier fighting games don't support the 6-button.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat doesn't, I've noticed.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 1 does not, I don't think.
Yes.
But like Mortal Kombat 2 and 3, yeah, no problem, because of course we had 6 buttons, so much easier to play. You need that run button.
Yeah.
Especially with 3, god damn it.
Mortal Kombat 2 on the 32X uses the 6 button, and it works really well.
Yes, it does. So yeah, you need 6 buttons for most fighting games, and for this one you need it. And yeah, this guy, he was not cheap. I can safely say that. I think he costs just about the same as the game, because this bubby has gone up. Mr. Akuma here has gone up in value significantly. Though I think it was always a pricey 3DO game.
I paid $20 for mine at the time, so it's definitely gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, probably just because people getting more interested in retro stuff and then learning that this port is like super fan. Even by today's standards, it is still a very, very good port. Like it doesn't have a lot of different like modes or anything kind of fancy about it, but it is probably as close as you can get to playing the original arcade version outside of just say emulating it on MAME or something like that. It is like about as arcade perfect as you get, especially for, I'm going to say 1994, which I think the arcade version of this came out, I think it was in 93. No, it was early 94. And then, yeah, according to Wikipedia, it was February 23rd, 94 when this came out, the arcade version. And then when it hit the 3DO, it was in November. So it was a pretty quick turnaround, especially for it being such a high quality job that it was. I'm assuming Capcom made this in-house, right?
That's what I say, because if you look at the case, it's interesting because Capcom's logo isn't on here anywhere.
Well, to be fair, it came in a long box. So, maybe it's, on the long box. The long box is even more expensive. Good God. Yeah. But yeah, as far as I know, I mean, yeah, maybe Panasonic gave Capcom some money to do the port, to kind of make it for their console. Because I know this game also did come out on, I think it was Genesis and Super Nintendo at the time. But those were about, fine ports for what those consoles could do. But yeah, this one is just surprisingly really good. Oh, in the back of the manual, they have the little 6-button pad offer.
Yeah.
Like you throw, you put that in there. It was at the time, it was $29.95, $3 shipping and handling. And they wanted you to figure out your state and local sales tax on here, which that's cute. That's really cute.
Yeah. I do like the manual too, because the manual's kind of like got like these really nice like drawings of like all the characters and like a whole bunch of fun little background stuff.
Oh
Also
yeah.
has all the moves and stuff too, which is cool.
Yeah. Like if you're me, you play as Ken. And so, they have the, fireball, dragon punch, hurricane kick, and his super move as well. Because I believe Super Street Fighter 2 is when they introduced the super moves, which is there's a little bar at the bottom of the screen that fills up. And when it gets super, you do a specific move, and then you have like for Ken's, it's just you do two really strong Shoryukens back to back, which is nice. It's pretty sick, especially when I looked up how to do it because I didn't look in here. So that was cool. Because yeah, like Ken and Ryu are the easiest characters to play as, I think.
Yeah.
In these, like I really like Sagat. I think Sagat's like I like his design, but he is really difficult to play.
You don't want to play as Chun-Li so you can get back to being a young single girl?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Have you ever seen her ending screen?
Yeah, I've seen it. The internet's obsession with Chun-Li is something I don't think I will ever understand.
Oh, I just love that ending screen.
Yeah, it is funny. But like, people like kind of thirst pretty hard after Chun-Li. I've never got it. Never saw it.
She's got big thighs.
I'm more of a Cammy guy. Cammy's where it's at. And everyone knows why. I don't have to say it.
Yeah.
It's Cammy. But I've never really messed around. See, that's the thing. I don't really mess around in Street Fighter with all the other characters. I mean, maybe I'm better with like Dulcim or E Honda or something. I don't fucking know. And I will never know.
When I play fighting games, I usually just play as a different character every time because I like fighting games well enough. I'm more of a casual player though. I just kind of mess around with them and just have fun with it.
Yeah, I'm probably the bare minimum when it comes to casual player that exists. Because I can play them and sometimes get lucky, but it's nothing too crazy. Our buddy Chris over at Novel Console, one night, me and him played a little bit of Soul Calibur 6, and I did okay. But it got to a point where he was just kicking the living shit out of me, so it stopped being fun.
Yeah,
but I did win a couple rounds. So
yeah. So going back into the game, there's really not a lot to say because this is literally, if you've played Street Fighter, it is exactly what you would expect. I will say one thing about this port that really makes it stand out to me is the soundtrack.
Soundtrack is very good. It's CD, so we get CD based audio, and it is pretty fucking spot on.
I've been listening to it most of the day just in preparation for the episode. Some of the tracks really pop. Like Ken's theme is really good. Like Guile's theme, it's Guile's theme. It's always fairly good.
Yeah, everybody knows Guile's theme. Goes with everything.
I know. Yeah, like they hyped up the whole like Q sound sound hardware for this game too, which really shows because like it is a good sounding game if you got a good sound system.
Oh, for sure.
And honestly, like I think it's one of the other reasons why this port is worth playing because it's just like it's a OST that they've never used again, as far as I know. And
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's honestly it's just really good. There's not much more you can say about it.
Yeah. I mean, the tunes are already there as far as the quality. And yeah, the 3DO is like a slightly rearranged version of it, but it works really well for what it is. Unless one of like, I don't know, the DOS or fucking Amiga ports use this. I have no idea. It's possible, but I don't know. And yeah, and I was wrong. There was no Genesis or Super Nintendo version of this. So I think they both got Super Street Fighter 2. But when we hit Turbo, I think they were like, it's beyond these consoles now. So
honestly, yeah. Probably.
Yeah. I mean, and I doubt Panasonic and 3DO paid Capcom enough money to be like, hey, don't put this on those consoles. Put it on here. Though they might have had a hand in like helping get this port out the door, which I wouldn't be surprised.
What I'm not sure is Was Street Fighter 2 Turbo on PlayStation or Saturn?
I
I don't know if it was.
I think it was going to.
Because I always wondered why this was like considered like the last port and like the one that like was like the best. Because I was always like, why wasn't it on PlayStation Saturn?
From what I know, there was a collection of Street Fighter games released for PlayStation and Saturn, and it is included.
Okay, but it's probably not this particular version.
It's probably not. I'm not 100% sure. I didn't play it. Like according to Wikipedia, there's numerous. It says numerous small differences from the arcade version, whatever the hell that means. So I don't know, but that's probably the same thing you could say from about the 3DO version as well. Like the differences between this and the arcade are probably very subtle. You know, like apparently some people said the performance of the game wasn't very strong at the time, though from my experience, plays just fine. You know,
Yeah, like even the load times aren't bad.
no, not at all. So yeah, it's pretty good, man.
The opening cutscene too is just like a joy to watch. Like you have it going in the background there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this stuff is like very when you go into an arcade, like they got to have a Street Fighter cab, and it's probably this one. And then yeah, just seeing Ryu just getting pumped up with his giant fucking muscles, and then punching you in the face in the screen is just it's a way to get your hype, man. You know, it draws your attention. Even though was this Akuma's debut? This one?
I don't remember, to be honest.
Well, I mean, he's advertised very heavily in this one. Like Akuma is, I believe this is his debut.
Oh yeah, yep. This was his first game,
and he's always been seen as a big deal. Again, I'm not a Street Fighter guy, so I don't fucking get it. I mean, he's cool, I guess, but isn't he just like another Ryu Ken like as far as playing? Unless he's just like that, but like better. I don't know.
I couldn't really tell you. I
like
Street Fighter enough.
I could tell you the difference between all the fucking colored ninjas in Mortal Kombat, but I could not tell you the difference between Akuma and Ryu.
Yeah, I couldn't really either. I like Street Fighter as a game, but I'm not like a massive Street Fighter like fanboy by any means.
Me either. It never appealed to me to that degree. But I could see why it appealed to people at the time, you know. Has a really nice art style and it plays very well. Like, I mean, this is not a bad game. Nowhere near a bad game. Like when we eventually do our rankings, like I will be shocked if there's a game above this. For real. Just as far as like maybe subjectively there are games I would prefer over this, but if we were being like objective with it, I mean, this has got to be the best game on the system. Like I really can't think of a better game.
So far what we've played, yeah. I mean, it is literally like so every 3DO game has some sort of weird quirk to it or some weird bullshit. This game is legit exactly what it says. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It is Street Fighter 2 Turbo on 3DO.
Yeah, there's nothing weird about this one at all. At least I didn't think there was.
Literally the only hang up I think there is with this game is this guy right here. And you can get past it real easily. It's not that hard to adapt. Or you can just get the arcade pad and you're good to go.
You get this boy, though. I mean, if you're going out of your way to play this game on this machine, you definitely need this. You know, yeah. I mean, even if you're trying to play it on, say, 360 or PS3 or, you know, like any other modern console, like you still need like a fight pad because they only have the 4 instead of the 6 face buttons. Yeah. So, and fight pads still exist. People still make them. So, or nowadays, if you want to get crazy, you can just get one of those giant arcade controllers, you know, with like the suction feet, you know, and you can just play it on a table and play like that. You know, I never got used to playing fighting games with the joystick just because that's not how I grew up playing them. So it always feels kind of wonky to me. That might be sacrilege, but you know, it's not bad. It's just I'm bad.
It's an acquired thing. Like to me, like Street Fighter is kind of like one of those games where I think you had to have been there when it first came out to really truly appreciate it, like a lot
Yeah,
of people do.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because to me, I think like when it comes to fighting games, everybody has their one fighting game that they just kind of gravitate to. Like to me, I'm a Tekken guy, but that's
Yeah,
because Tekken was like what was on. I was a PlayStation kid, and Tekken was right there.
I feel like whatever fighting game series you started with is the one that you like the most.
Mm,
You know, like Tekken probably for you was near your starting point. Like it's the
yeah,
one that clicked. Mortal Kombat was the one that clicked with me. Still to this day, even though I still haven't played some of the more recent ones. I do need to fix that soon. But you know, all the older ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, even like mythologies and special forces and those trash games, the 3D ones, like I know them all very, very well, you know, like,
yeah.
and again, I could tell you like the history of just random fucking characters in that series, but we're not here to talk about that. Sadly, there's no official Mortal Kombat game on here, so I can't go
No,
into that kind of detail.
we
But
are going.
we'll do
There
that
is
another
a
time.
maybe when that port of Mortal Kombat 2 gets finished, we can talk about it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Because wasn't there at the time plans to do like a more official Mortal Kombat port to the 3DO? Maybe not of 2, maybe it was with like 3 or something,
I
but it got
think there
canned.
was, but I don't think it got very far.
Yeah, because probably by the time they thought about it, my guess is it would have been for 3 or Ultimate 3, but by the time those were getting ports, it was, you know, they were looking at like the PlayStation and the Saturn and things like that, even like Trilogy. Um, you know, got like say like an N64 port, so the 3DO was dead by that point.
Trilogy is one of the rare games that's on PlayStation, Saturn, and N64.
I had that game on N64 and I played a lot of it, like a lot of it, because it was sort of bringing together, you know, MK's 1 through Ultimate 3. You know, they even got like a random new guy to be Johnny Cage. You know, not the classic 1 and 2. They got somebody closer to say how 3 looked to be Johnny Cage, and you could be all the bosses and everything. And it felt like the trilogy felt like a celebration of the series. Like there was some story, but I think the story in that game is either like non-canon or just ways of explaining how some characters aren't really dead. You know,
Yeah, it's kind of just
yeah,
a
it's very minor, you know, but like you can go straight from like Ultimate 3 or Ultimate 3 to 4, which is kind of where they were trying to do with the whole Shinnok thing. But
yeah.
you know, Mortal Kombat 4 is bad. I don't like 4 at all.
Yeah, it was the transition to 3D was a bit of a it took him a game to figure it out. Let's just say.
Yeah, Gold on Dreamcast is an improvement, but again, Gold has that same issue, which is 4 face buttons and 2 triggers. You
Yeah,
know, so but at least with the N64, you had 6 face buttons, so it definitely made fighting games like Trilogy much easier to play.
true. Um, so going into reception now for this port in particular, it's kind of all over the place. Like there's a lot of 9s and a lot of 10s, but then you also get like GamePro gave it a 16.5. Famitsu gave it a 29 out of 40. EGM gave it a 32. So it wasn't exactly all praise. Like there was a few companies that weren't impressed, but granted, I don't think they were impressed with 3DO ever. So
Yeah, it seems like all the issue people had with it was the control. Like I think all of them were like, yeah, graphically it's about as on par with the arcade version as you could get, but having to play it on the standard pad is kind of rough, you know, and that you had to mail order a specific game controller in order to get the full experience, you know. I'm surprised Capcom never considered doing like a bundle where they just bundled the controller in with the game so you could get used to it, but
yeah,
that might have been too expensive.
it was probably too expensive, and Capcom probably didn't care that much because the 3DO wasn't breaking down the walls like people thought it was going to.
Yeah, and like Capcom's not a hardware company. Like they've made
No,
hardware. They've made other hardware beyond this, but it was never really their forte. So I imagine the mail order was just like, oh, whoever wants this, let us know. We'll make one for you. But we're not going to, like, these aren't going to sell on the store shelves. That's just not really their way of thinking, which I totally understand. Like, that's a lot to ask.
It's interesting that this is like Capcom's like only real game, I think, on the 3DO.
Yeah. I mean, 3DO did have a pretty big notoriety, or like it was a decent success in Japan for sure. But yeah, like Konami, I don't think is on this thing at all.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, like SNK, kinda.
Yes,
Kinda, sorta.
But they didn't make their game. We'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at a later time. I'm trying to think, like, obviously Nintendo and Sega aren't on here. Trying to think of what other big, like, Square isn't on here at all. Enix isn't on here at all. Trying to think of any other notable Japanese devs at the time, but like most of them just didn't show up on here at all. And again, this could have just been that, like, Capcom was headhunted to get this game on there, and maybe 3DO was thinking, hey, if we get like the hottest arcade game at the time on our system, maybe it'll drive people to come in and buy the system. And it probably worked. I imagine there were some people who heard how good this home console port was for the system, and probably by this time the 3DO was much cheaper.
Oh yeah.
So there are probably people going, oh, well, maybe I'll check it out. I mean, the damage already had been done to the 3DO. Like, this wasn't going to save it.
No.
But I imagine it probably kept it alive for at least a couple more months.
So my theory is, I don't think 3DO themselves pushed for this a lot. I think Panasonic funded this, essentially.
I would agree.
I think they basically went to Capcom and said, hey, we'll fund the project if you port this over. And Capcom probably at that point was like,
they're
sure.
like, yeah. They're like, we're not going to say no to money.
Yeah, because I think that's my guess why Capcom's name isn't on here, other than like in like the copyright stuff.
Yeah, like their logo doesn't show up on here at all, surprisingly.
Yeah, it is in the title screen.
Yeah, and they even went as far as to make like a version of this control pad for the 3DO, which it existed in other forms, but like most people know this as like a 3DO pad, surprisingly enough. So, oh yeah, and I didn't mention the D-pad is really nice. In some ways, it's better than the standard 3DO D-pad.
It's better than this clunky ass fucker over here.
Oh, by a mile. Like, it looks weird, but it is more comfortable than you'd think.
I don't know. I still don't know how Casey dealt with this thing back in the day.
Yeah, listeners, if you're ever in my area, I'll let you touch my 3DO fight pad, just so you can know. And that doesn't have a double meaning.
Awkward pause. Anyways. Yeah, so I guess now going into must play, okay, stay away. I mean, this is an obvious must play. Although
for sure.
I'll add the little caveat. If you don't own a 3DO, I wouldn't buy a 3DO just to play this. I'd just play like HD remix or whatever. But if you have a 3DO and you have this game, yeah, play it. This is a must play.
Oh, for sure. Far. Yeah. Even if you're curious to how solid this port is, yeah, this is the absolute must play. I mean, again, it's Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Despite my, misgivings about the series, like, I recognize it's a very high quality game and it looks really good. The sound is fantastic. It plays super well. The control, especially with the fancy pad, like, it plays just about as close to the arcade version as you could get. And for it to be out at the same year as the arcade version and have not as many shortcomings as, say, like a Super Nintendo version would have had, or even a Sega Genesis version would have had, is very admirable. And the fact they were able to get it on here is great. I mean, once we head into this era with the PlayStation and the Saturn, even the N64, like arcade ports, the gap between arcade and console quality gets smaller and smaller. And it really isn't until I think it's Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast where they said this is just as good, if not better, than the arcade version, which I think had a lot to do with the Dreamcast being based on like Sega arcade hardware as well.
Sega's Naomi hardware.
Yeah. which was like the cutting edge arcade hardware at the time. So it was easy, even though I don't think like Soul Calibur was Namco. I don't think they were using Naomi hardware, but regardless of that, they were still able to get that game over. And yeah, I fucking love Soul Calibur to death. And that game is why. So, but yeah, this is fantastic. Like this is kind of the beginning of the home ports being just as good as the arcade version. This feels like the real start to closing that gap. And it kind of like it starts here and then it ends with, if I still have my copy of Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast, like that gap. Really,
there's a term that you don't hear a lot anymore because it's kind of like it's kind of like not really a thing anymore. But like porting perfection, where a company just nails a port, like
yeah,
that is
arcade perfect.
Yes. And nowadays we have companies struggling to put their games on Switch, and it's
well, game development has changed quite a bit since
Yeah.
1994.
I mean, my favorite port of all time is the Switch port of Mortal Kombat 11. Not because it's good, just because it's fucking impressive how much they downgraded that game.
Did Shiver do that?
I'd have to look into it. The game plays perfectly. It looks like shit though. It is like it is the funniest thing ever.
Is that the same with the Doom ports on Switch as well? Like they don't look really, really solid, but they play really well.
I believe so. That's kind of a lot of the early Switch ports sacrificed graphics for gameplay, and then towards the end they decided our games have to look good, but I guess they just aren't going to run. So
yeah, because I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but Nintendo bought a fucking studio. They bought Shiver. And Shiver was part of Embracer Group, and they were known for doing these kind of Switch ports as well. So my guess is they probably brought them on board to maybe help with like getting some games up to quality, and probably, as some people thought, if there's like a big third-party game that wants to come to say the next Switch, Nintendo can say, "Hey, we got a team that'll just do it for you. You don't even have to do it." So
it's
that seems like them future-proofing so that we don't get like Mortal Kombat 1 or Hogwarts Legacy or these kind of ports that are as good as they probably can be, just being limited by the hardware. Like it's amazing they can run it all, but really like the best Switch port back behind me is Witcher 3 over there. Like that is an impressive port still to this day.
Yeah.
The fact they got that game to run on Switch and it run like it's half the frame rate. It does not look as good as the other versions, but it's pretty damn good. Like it's surprising. But that I believe was Panic Button who did that port. And yeah, that's like probably the most impressive port of the last probably like 10 some years, really.
It's kind of like how Sony bought Blue Point Games just as a porting house, because like Blue Point Games was one of the best porters as well.
And what the fuck are they doing? They're not doing anything.
They're working on something. We just have no idea what it is.
Maybe it's an Eco remake.
I'd like that.
They might as well. They did Shadow of the Colossus, and we have Last Guardian. Fuck it, round it out. Give us Eco, especially since Team Eco's dead. They could do that. They could be doing that famed Bloodborne remaster.
Maybe that's what they're working on.
Maybe them remaking Uncharted 1 would be a really good idea, in my opinion. I mean, hell, Blue Point could probably do like really nice remastered collections of, say, like the old Ratchet games, the old Jax games, the old Sly Cooper games. But, Sony doesn't give a fuck about those, unfortunately. So who knows? Maybe eventually. Well, didn't Sony announce something like what was it, Days of Play or something? Like a State of Play or something stupid?
Yeah, they have theirs. Microsoft has theirs coming up. These things always end up being just disappointing to me. So
like it's something completely different. Like they haven't said like I don't know, the Days of Play is some weird thing. Like I don't even think there's proper game announcements in this thing.
I don't know. I don't really follow it anymore. I just kind of, when a game comes out, I buy it if I want it.
Fair enough. I mean, they're actually putting PS2 games in the premium catalog. Holy shit. And one of them is Sly 1. Holy fuck. They have Sly Cooper. That's impressive.
Sly One's a good game, but I prefer Sly 2.
Yeah, Sly 2 and 3 are where it's at. But hey, Sly 1, it's a start, you know?
Sly
one's
One
not a
is
bad
an
game.
Sly One's an amazing platformer, like just as a
Yes.
pure platformer.
Oh yeah, but 2 and 3 is really where the game's like personality really shines
Oh,
through.
yeah.
Like being more hub, open world kind of based. Like fits that series much, much better.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to the Xbox showcase naturally, especially when potentially the next Doom game got leaked. So, and from what I've seen of it, or from what I've read about it, that'd probably be pretty good. I need to play those Doom games though. I still haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
But that's me messing up.
Nah, it's all good. But
But
yeah.
yeah, if I didn't say, this is a must play.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute must play.
Easy must play.
Yeah.
That being said, I think in terms of fighting games now, I think there's only one left that we really have to cover.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we did Way of the Warrior. We did.
did.
We did this one.
We played balls. We played balls.
Oh yeah, we did play, but I forgot we played that.
Um,
Because I was sick that time. Is
Samurai
that?
Showdown's the last one that we really have to
I
cover.
think so. That's the last like big one. There might be like one we're missing. I don't know.
Well, there's some Japan only ones like that Yu Yu Hakusho fighter I have.
I mean, maybe
I mean,
later. Maybe later.
We can kidnap Matt and get him to play with us for that one.
Yeah, and I can't sort this by fighting, so I'll have to look it up.
We did say though, so for the next game we were going to cover, we had talked.
Oh, Primal Rage. I think Primal Rage has a 3DO copy.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I mean it's Primal Rage.
So we had talked off camera in a server at one point about the next game to play, and I think we had discussed maybe we should do Slam and Jam next.
Yeah,
go back to sports games.
Back to sports, baby. Well, the NBA Finals are coming up.
That's actually good timing.
Decent timing. We're not at the finals yet. I think we're at the conference finals. But you know, Timberwolves lost 3 in a row. Fuck. But you know, whatever. So yeah, we'll talk. We'll go back to Crystal and we'll talk some Slam and Jam 95. I've played a little bit of it already, so I do have some thoughts, but we will save that for the next episode.
And it's ironic because I just happened to buy it recently, so
it's cheap. It's a cheap one to find.
Oh yeah, right up there with pretty much most 3DO sports games, to be honest.
Yes. See now, yeah, I don't know jack shit about fighting games, but I can talk to you about sports.
Yeah.
Like a true American.
You know, I liked Madden and I liked Madden. FIFA was FIFA, but I'm interested actually in this one in particular because similar to Madden, it is actually an exclusively made for 3DO games. So
yes, in a weird numbering system where it felt like they were going to do more of these and they ended up not doing them.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll do Slam and Jam 95 next week. But anyways, guys, once again, oh, you got a real case. Nice.
Oh yeah.
I don't. I have one of those plastic like DVD remake cases, but that's besides the point.
I have that for one game, but one we haven't played yet.
Yeah. But yeah, once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. You can find the 3DO Experience on all the major podcasting platforms. You can also find us on YouTube with video versions, I guess. And if you like, you can find all of our links at linktree/thebarbergames, and you can join us at the GNC Podcast Network Discord server for all things GNC, 3DO, Geek Addicts, Talk Gaming, Anime, or just general nonsense. And with that, everybody, we'll see you all later.
Bye-bye.
If you're not playing on a 3DO system, what are you playing with?